TGIF, happy Friday, family, and welcome to the Friday edition of WWT Live here on Women's Wrestling Talk. There's quite a bit to talk about, including Raw, SmackDown, extensions, and people asking for releases. It's going to be a very full day here on WWT Live.
Yeah, now I'm going to go off. This is Shayna, the Queen of Spades, Baszler, and you're watching Women's Wrestling Talk.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.
TGIF, guys, happy Friday, and welcome to WWT Live as part of Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet. I am the guy they call the Professor, GB, Teflon G. Pick a name. You can just call me Gerard, and that will be perfectly fine. We have a very full show, as you can imagine, lots to talk about leading into a non-premium live event weekend, but it feels like there's an awful lot that's happening. So we're going to get into all of that in a minute, but first, my team, my crew, my panel, they're joining us, representing the East Coast, all things PR and AEW. Courtney is in the building. Courtney, how are you?
Hello, happy Friday. Happy Friday. It has been a very eventful week, and also there's more to come because it's also WWT week the following week. So there's going to be a lot more to come. It's SmackDown tonight. Lots happening, and I'm ready to get started.
Absolutely. We've got a lot to talk about, and a bit of a full house. Joining us is the mayor. Seth is in the building. How are you, sir?
Happy Friday, everybody. Happy to be back.
Yeah, man.
I don't have anything slanderous to say today. It might be a very clean show.
Well, we'll see. It's Friday, so Friday can be a little funny. So
Can I just say to the mayor that I actually like the Sailor Moon getup he has on?
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Very nice. That's good stuff. Now, I wish I had a proper intro for this one. I don't. So I'm not even sure how to do this, but if Seth is here, it only makes sense that I don't know if it's the opposite end of Seth or his other. I don't know. Jacob's here. Jacob, how are you, sir?
Oh, I am great. And Mr. Welton said it's going to be a clean show, and he didn't have anything slanderous to say. Yeah, you can throw that out the window. I'm here today, buddy. Let's go. We're back.
Let me cue up the slander.
Yeah. Here we go. And on top of that, we have yet another elected official in the building. The councilman is here. Councilman, how are you, sir?
Is that the two co-mayors here today on Friday's edition of WWT Live?
Are we bootleg councilman?
Who's the true mayor of Vice City?
Wow.
Professor, you might have missed this, but just a brief week ago, me and the councilman had a nice little ceasefire during 3 hours at NXT, and that has seemingly died since then.
Seemingly died.
Wait. Let's not get too hasty. I'm just trying to figure out what everyone else trying to figure out. Last time Jacob was on here, that tag said co-mayor.
No. That tag said accountant. I was an accountant for hire.
Why y'all act like video of this is not out?
I mean, we could go back. I literally just changed it
on video.
I mean, you want to put $10 on this? We could go back.
$100 on this.
Oh wow, we've got bets happening here. Oh,
Dylan, Lord. I know you in the chat somewhere. Get to work, Dylan.
Oh well, speaking of Dylan, it is morning over in Australia. Good morning to you, kind sir. Cousin Ron, good to see you. Dylan says the new NXT Bonafide entrance still not going to be played. I didn't even know that it was anywhere around. So
I think only TK has it. I think that's why I think TK's uploaded it yet because she told us about it, Dylan. But I don't know if she's uploaded it into StreamYard yet.
Yeah, I've seen mine. They all just have to be uploaded into the. Yeah. You probably got to give more memory too, because that's why certain things got to be deleted. But it's got to be uploaded.
Okay. Well, I know a few things that can be deleted. And
real quick. Sorry to interrupt, Professor. One, let's look at Dylan's last comment. 2, what am I gaslighting, ma'am? I'm on your side 90% of the time. Why are we doing this to me? I just got here and we're firing shots.
Oh boy,
I just
Rosa is here.
Cindale, I am never on your side. This is war for
life.
life.
Cindale, you're always welcomed over here.
Cindale is here. Oh boy, this is so. Wait, I'm curious if it's morning for you as well, Cindale. I don't know that I've ever known where you're at. So if you can let us know where you're at, that would be fantastic. Councilman,
you guys have that in common. You guys are both Jags fans.
He has no right to slander. Oh boy,
Jacob and Councilman.
Oh boy,
no. Jacob covered the Jags. Let's clarify that.
Eric
you kind of become a fan when you cover a team.
Boy.
You kind of do.
Oh boy.
Shenanigans.
Well, this ought to be fun trying to do this show. Well, I'm going to start in a very interesting way. If you'll remember on Wednesday, we talked about the fact that Tony Khan had a doc of sorts that was going to air on NFL Films. Let me ask, has anybody watched that yet?
I actually watched it.
You did watch it, Courtney. Okay, cool. Anybody else watch it? All right.
Nah.
So let me tell you what it was, and then Courtney, you can share any thoughts that you have on it. So it was, we were all told it was going to air on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern prior to Dynamite. It aired on FS1. And so what happened is, so this was not a full 30-minute documentary on Tony Khan. It was not. Instead, it was kind of NFL Films had this program and they profiled 3 different people or 3 different stories. And his was one of the 3. It was a 24-hour look in the life of Tony Khan. And it dealt with him right after this pile driver into the NFL draft and that kind of thing. So,
this was the neck brace time then.
Yes, this was during the neck brace.
He was actually taking pics from the war room in the neck brace.
This is exactly when that was. So, I'll share some other thoughts in a second, but Courtney and wow, Cindy was in the far east of Asia. That is awesome that you join us regularly from there. Thank you so much. Shanru, I think I said your name correctly. Yes, we are all the way live. Unless you are watching on the replay, then this is the replay. But right now, as we're talking to you, we are live. So, Courtney, since you watched, what were your thoughts on the 10 minutes or so of Tony Khan that aired on NFL Films?
I thought it should have lasted a little bit longer because I know a lot of people, not in the wrestling world, but in the football world, don't know about AEW, especially wrestling fans did not know that Tony Khan was a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that kind of opened a little bit of doors a bit. As I mentioned on Wednesday, that it's nice that AEW has this leverage because some of the superstars did a match right before the Jacksonville game against Cleveland, and that kind of gave a little bit of exposure. So that is also a boost. Not to mention with Daly's place, which I should have mentioned this on Wednesday, which I kind of wish they did use it as a performance facility because you have Daly's place. It's right there. That's where AEW was. And also it really is nice that some of the superstars that really kind of shared their piece, like Chris Jericho, Tony Storm, Swerve Strickland. We saw a little bit of Big Bill in the video and even a little bit of his dad. But I think it was nice to kind of really get that in there. And it just shows because, look, I'm not going to lie. Everybody has their opinion on Tony Khan. Good, bad, controversial, in between, whatever. I get it. But just seeing that little clip, it does show that he does care about the business. Like, he's not doing it just because of that. It really shows that he cares. And for him to travel from AEW to working on NFL football, that takes a lot of commitment. So I have to give him all the respect in the world to doing that.
Yeah. So I will say, it's hard. So I think objectively, as wrestling fans, naturally we would want all 30 minutes to be on Tony Khan, and we'd want all things to be about AEW and the like. Being that this was on the NFL side of things, I understand why it was 10 minutes. This is by far not a comprehensive kind of documentary regarding Tony Khan. I think a lot of us want to see something like that to get a better picture of what Tony Khan's life looked like. For the wrestling fan, I think you got to learn what some of Tony Khan's football responsibilities are. And I think it can give you some insight in terms of what he does over there and perhaps why he feels like he can take some of that expertise and bring it into AEW. But if you're looking for kind of a full documentary that will tell you a lot more about AEW and Tony Khan than you already know, this is probably not the piece to watch. But if you would like to see him in his NFL world, I do think that'll be cool to check out. Of course, this is nothing like what we're going to see next week when we finally get the official debut of the Mr. McMahon documentary coming on to Netflix. Again, that is next week, and I shouldn't put this out there. I won't, because it's going to mean more work for us. But I do think there probably need to be dedicated conversations. That's the best way to say that, to that particular show when it airs. And for those who don't know, it is a 6-part docuseries. So it's not going to be just kind of a one and done. There are 6 chapters to this. And I believe the first 2 are coming our way when it premieres on September 25th. And we'll talk more about that, obviously, when we get into it. But that's the word and the follow-up from Tony Khan. Now, I mentioned Netflix. But before I get to that, let's talk about this here. Because in the AEW world today, one of the pieces of news that we got is that Miro has asked for his release from AEW. Now, it has been a while since we've seen Miro on AEW television. I think the last time we heard from Miro was in an interview in April. He's been injured for a while. There was talk that he could come in during the All In Casino Battle Royal match. That didn't happen. The Casino Gauntlet match, rather. And the challenge here, and the reason he's asking for his release, is because back in 2022, he actually signed a 4-year extension. So him asking for his release means he's still got about 2 years. He still has about 2 years left on his contract. So my question right now is, A, do you think Miro gets his release? And B, what should Miro do at this point? Councilman, we'll start with you.
Come on home. Come on home. Come on. Let's get rid of that Miro. Let's slap Rusev back on here. It's time. You were there at the wrong time. This is the perfect time for you to come back. And you got nothing but competition. Him versus Gunther in a match. Crazy. I think that's his best thing, and I hope that's what we see. That's all I got for that. Just come on home, my brother.
Okay. Jacob, do you think Miro will be granted his release? And if so, what does he do now?
So the reports are that he's getting paid 7 figures to sit at the house and argue over creative. My math ain't the best, but 7 figures means you're making at least $1 million. Tony, you gonna either have to release this man or be like, hey, dog, Wednesday, 2:00 call time, get your butt to the arena. You gonna earn this money, because he went through a divorce. He was injured. He's had a rough couple years. That's fair. Pretty sure there was some other family related matters in there. He's had a rough couple years, but you paying a man $1 million at least to not be around? I don't care how deep your pockets are. That's going to start hurting after a while. So maybe Tony gives him his release. Tony's released people before in the past. He got rid of Joey Janela, let Swole go. There's been releases, so maybe. But yeah, if you're Miro, take the release. Maybe Tony hits you with a 90-day no compete. And like like Councilman said, come on home. Because Public Enemies put out a tweet. They're like, Rusev, Big Bronson Reed, give me that now. Woo! Throw Rusev in there with Bronson and Braun right now. Give me that. Inject it into my veins. Let those three kill each other every other week on Raw. Ain't even got to be for a title. We ain't got to have a match. Let them just destroy stuff.
Or him and Oba, just like a one-off. Like he come back down to NXT and him versus Oba.
Ooh. Nice little 2-month feud. Kind of, get those legs back underneath you. Get some reps in. Big meaty men slapping meat.
Wow. Said, what do you think? Is there a space for Miro right now in this iteration of WWE?
Yes and no. Because I think I don't think the embers of the flame would last long. I think there's better places for him. And I don't believe that Tony will actually grant this release because I think he knows in recent memory just how people can kind of use that star power on the other side to make people look even greater. And the Miro, the Redeemer stuff, that's some of Miro's greatest character work. So clearly he's learned some stuff apart from WWE side of what he was given with the Rusev gimmick. But outside of just WWE, yes, the Bronson Reed, the Oba Femis would be cool. Even if he was able to get down to TNA and with this NXT TNA partnership would be cool. I would like to see maybe an extended stay in New Japan, seeing him take on the likes of like Jeff Cobb. That would be fun. There's a lot of different avenues outside of just the two biggest fish in the pond. So he has a little bit of runway, but I don't think Tony Khan grants the release just because Miro was doing really good work in AEW, and that can only continue when you let him go somewhere else. He's already seen this happen with Spears, Paige, Jade, and how their star powers have just increased almost overnight. Letting an ex-WWE go back to WWE probably is not his best interest, so he might just continue to eat the money.
I mean, I'm sure the story we have in the next part of the show, like, would he have let them go? And they're gone too. I don't want to say the name yet because I'm sure that story's up here, but I didn't think those two would be on heading their way to the WWE. So
that's probably going to be a larger part of why he's going to continue to just eat that bill.
I can see that, man. Okay,
interesting. So let me ask this question to the chat as well as to you, Courtney. If he comes back, is he Miro or is he Rusev?
That's going to be very interesting because I believe WWE owns the trademark to Rusev. I believe they own it, like the name, the trademark, everything. So if he goes back to WWE, he's Rusev. But as the mayor pointed out, it would be nice to see him wrestle in a different promotion, such as New Japan, because I know AEW does have a partnership with New Japan. We've seen some stars wrestle in New Japan, in Stardom. It would be great to see him wrestle in TNA. That could also be another opportunity for him if that's the case. So if he's wrestling in a different promotion, I mean, I can't see him not using the Miro, but it's going to be really interesting to see. As for WWE, I mean, I think it's a little different now than he was back then. I don't think they're going to shove the Rusev down his throat. Maybe he'll use Miro. I don't know, but only time will tell.
Any other thoughts? Should he come back as Miro or Rusev?
Rusev Day. That's all I'm gonna say. Rusev.
Look, he made his name as Rusev. Like, let's be honest. If you ask somebody, if you stick a picture of this man in front of a wrestling fan, and you go, "Is that Rusev or is that Miro?" Most will say Rusev. You made your name as that. Yeah, you had the couple hot runs as Miro, the Redeemer gimmick, the War with God was great stuff, but like, you're going back to where they know you as Rusev. Let's not complicate things. And your star power is not big enough to warrant you going back in with the name that you switched to. So it's like if Goldust went back, if Dustin Rhodes went back, he could probably get away with being called Dustin Rhodes. And it's a safe bet Trips would probably let him because the star power, the name is big enough. You have Cody. It makes sense. Miro coming in. Nah, dog, you Rusev. Let's go ahead. We might not slap you with the tank and the full Bulgarian gimmick, but you're Rusev. Let's get this running. Let's go ahead, print these shirts. Rusev Day is back. Let's make money.
Interesting to see. Let's see. Rusev Day was such a great gimmick. It was getting over so well. Yeah, I think part of what made Rusev Day work was when he had, the guy we now know as the Drama King, Matthew Raywald, basically singing the whole Rusev Day. Without that, and without, Lana, does that work the same? I'm almost in the camp of thinking he has evolved from what Rusev was. So if you're able to use the name Rusev, but be more like Miro, that could be a very interesting development, I think. I think the War with God, we just got started with that. I think if WWE could likely take that and produce it and present it in a way that we go, all right, I need much more of this, as opposed to how sporadically we were getting that over in AEW. So we'll see if Miro is granted his release, and if he is granted the release, where he ends up. Again, time will tell, but certainly we do wish him the best. Now, there's been a lot of conversation this week about Raw and SmackDown. So let's kind of get somewhat of an update on where we are. For one, talking about Raw, of course, we know Raw is headed to Netflix on January the 3rd. I'm sorry, I don't know where June came from. January the 3rd, 2025, it's heading to Netflix. Now, from October until it heads to Netflix, Raw will move to 2 hours while on USA. That's kind of part of the compromise, because if you'll remember, the deal with Fox ran out and Raw had nowhere to go from September through the end of the year. So the compromise was, hey, you get to come on to USA, or you get to stay on USA, rather, Raw that is, but back up, because I just mixed a couple of things up. SmackDown's deal ran out. Correct. But Raw's deal with USA was running out in October. Okay. So they signed a 3-month extension to be able to be there from October until the end of the year. But part of that came with reducing from 3 hours to 2 hours. So Raw will be 2 hours until they move to Netflix. When they hit Netflix, they are going back to 3 hours, and there will be commercials. So just be prepared for that. I don't know if there will be some sort of option on Netflix for those who have, paid for whatever the premium is to go commercial free. Don't know that yet, but we do know that Raw is going to be 3 hours when it heads to Netflix. Now, the other big piece of news is SmackDown. So the word on the street is that when we get to January, apparently SmackDown will move to 3 hours on USA. Now I know some are probably leery of that, because we thought that SmackDown would be 3 hours when it premiered last week. And a couple of people were prepared to do a 3-hour watch along, and they only had 2. So that's the word that we're getting, is that SmackDown goes to 3 hours in January. Here's the question. We'll have Raw and SmackDown for 2 hours from October through the end of the year. Should Raw and SmackDown remain 2 hours, or should they be 3-hour shows? I'll start with you, Courtney.
It's ironic, because I'm looking at comments where people complained that it should be 3 hours. People tend to forget Raw originally was 2 hours. There's a pro and there's a con in this. For SmackDown, I believe they should keep it 2 hours. I know a lot of people said 3, but 3 hour wrestling on a Friday night, that's a little bit adjustable on a Friday. Monday, there's a pro to this when it comes to 2 hours, because of course you want to keep that 2 hour span. You do get some action in there. You do actually get a little promos in between, because 3 hours is a little bit long to really do, especially you don't want things dragging, and also you don't want things to be too repetitive in some matches. I know the first time they tried to do it 3 hours, there were some matches that was getting a little bit too repetitive. So for me, I would love for them to at least remain 2 hours, because when they first started, it was originally supposed to be a 2-hour show. And also it's more action, but that's kind of my 2 cents on that. But I do believe they should be 2 hours. 2 hours.
Very, very funny, Dylan. I had the same thought, actually, though. That's kind of funny. Boza says Raw was a great 2-hour show. Content creators were cranky when it wasn't 3 hours last week. I thought Raw was 3 hours last week. They were probably upset when SmackDown wasn't 3 hours. Now, I am going to do a little bit of fact checking. Raw was originally 1 hour. When it began in 1993. It was originally 1 hour, and then it eventually evolved to being a 2-hour show, and then, of course, ultimately a 3-hour show. Jacob, man, what are your thoughts on a 3-hour SmackDown and a 3-hour Raw? Are we good with that, or should we be hanging out at 2 hours?
In idea, I'm good with it because look at the rosters.
for those who are listening, Cindy, man, she's amazing. She says you are not the one, Lola Vice, the Councilman Morpheus 2024, and that's because the councilman has these shades on. This is great. This is great. I'm sorry, Jacob. Back to you, sir.
Oh no, you're good because I saw it before you popped it up. But no, the ideal of 3 hours makes sense because you look at these rosters, they're loaded rosters. You have a bunch of talent. You have a deep women's division, and there's rumors that you're getting women's mid-card titles soon. So the extra hour could and hopefully would and should be used to develop, get more names, make more stars, and things of that nature. The problem is, like we've seen on Raw for the past year and a half, you got a 3-hour show. I see the Judgment Day 12 times at 3 hours. You lean toward potential overexposure, potential repetitiveness, like Courtney said. So it's a catch-22, but at the end of the day, we all kind of had a feeling this was going this way anyway. Like, you kind of just had to be like, all right, USA is taking back SmackDown. They're losing NXT and Raw. Like, USA is probably going to want something up out of this, like, because they had SmackDown, lost it to Fox, got it back, and they're like, hey, dog, we gonna need something out of you. Mm-hmm. And Raw going to 2 hours is basically because WWE's too cheap to pay for the extra hour out of pocket because USA is like, nah, we're doing you a favor. We're not going to give you 3. So it was coming. It was inevitable. I just hope they use it correctly and it doesn't get repetitive. And I have a lot more faith with Trips at the books and at the helm than the prior regime. So hopefully it's good.
Said, let me ask you this. With SmackDown potentially going to 3 hours, what does WWE need to do to ensure that SmackDown is as entertaining as a 3-hour show as it is as a 2-hour show?
You have to build more stars. We can't keep recycling the same people at the top of the card. And I know everything revolves around Roman and Cody's story, but the mid-card, the tag championships have to be more prevalent on your show in a fashion the way that Raw does it. That way those 2 hours fly by now, but now you're going to need more backstage segments that have meaning. You're going to have to do more things like Carmelo and Andrade and have those one-off series that actually allow your program to develop week over week. And you're going to have to tell more stories in the women's division. It can't just be like, when is Tiffany going to cash in? Nia's the champ and nobody can really challenge her. You're going to have to tell more stories across the women's division if you really want that 3-hour show to have some type of meaning.
Councilman, well, let me go to this one. I'm just seeing this. Jeffrey says SmackDown doesn't have many things to talk about for 3 hours of SmackDown than Raw with different storylines. Judgment Day, Bronson and Braun, Jay and Braun, CM Punk, Drew versus Gunther. So let me ask the question to you, Councilman. Who do you, or what other stories do you think can be told in this additional hour of SmackDown? Because it feels like SmackDown as a 2-hour program certainly is full. What other stories do you think could be told that would make SmackDown interesting for a 3rd hour?
I think Mayor said it best. Tag team divisions, more of the women and stuff, like stop lumping them in like 6 women tags or full tag teams and stuff. Like, I can't remember the last time outside of Nia Jax, Bayley, and Naomi and Tiffany that you've had a singles match with anyone in the women's division. And I think Raw has now found its stride of how to do 3 hours well. Like start us off very, very like high energy in that middle, giving us a chance to see some of these people that could be potential main eventers, like you see with like Pure Fusion Collective, like you see with now Zelina Vega, even some of like the LWO cats. Like you have an entire tag team you don't show. Pretty Deadly is one of your best tag teams, and you just have them in the back working on a musical that don't exist or being Tiffany Stratton's lackeys. So it's like you have, and again, too, you only show 8 superstars on SmackDown. So it's like, and you have a roster of 25. So it's like, where are these other people? Where is AJ Styles? And then also, too, this is going to be real controversial, but better feuds, because your champion right now is lackluster. Your main crown jewel, your WWE champion, is lackluster. The fact that he has to keep tying himself into Roman Reigns to be relevant and the bloodline to be relevant is really starting to lose its stride. Because you had something with AJ Styles when you started, you let that die out. You had something with Kevin Owens, you let that die out. You cannot continuously keep putting him in the bloodline story to make him relevant. So you need to start actually develop stories with these people, with these characters that also go. Because if I can ask y'all, who's next to challenge Cody Rhodes outside of the bloodline? Who do y'all see that deserves a fair shot to say like, hey, I'm finna call my shot, and that if he wasn't in Bad Blood with a tag team, I want to face you at Bad Blood for the championship?
If it's possible, and I know we might not get there to the end of the year, I think they're at a safe space where they can finally move Seth Rollins to SmackDown. Like I feel like Raw has enough star power throughout the show where we don't need Rollins there as like a buffer to carry that show anymore.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That's the same problem.
Okay, so let me. Well, first of all, Cindy has a very interesting answer to that, and she says Randy Orton, and I actually think that's a really solid answer.
But that one might be too soon, because that one is one of your ones where you can work that for 6 months from everything they've been in. It's like, do you want to pull the trigger on that now? Because everything Randy's going to put Cody through, and we haven't gotten Cody, and we haven't got Randy to switch to the voices in his head Randy. We still got like fun fan Randy right now. So is that something we really want to pull the trigger on, or are we going to wait till next year for that?
Well, to that point, I would say if you're going to pull him away from the bloodline, you need a story that people are going to be able to sink their teeth into, and a story that has that already, like, you don't necessarily want to have to build a story. I think if anything, you want to be able to peel back the layers that already exist. So the Randy Orton piece is a very easy one. Yeah. You know, I mean, you can, and you've got tons of footage to pull back on that one. You can talk legacy. You can, you know, go down the whole road of him protecting, you know, Cody, like all of the things. And I think it is a story that is big enough that could keep people paying attention to what Cody is doing outside of a bloodline situation. I will also say that what's hard about trying to predict what a third hour of SmackDown will look like is because the stories that have been built to be timed for 2 hours. So, you know, you get the opportunity to add a third hour. There are lots of opportunities to add lots of people. You know, you can add more women to the conversation. You can add more tag teams to the conversation. You can start, you know, there was a time where SmackDown was kind of considered the brand where we got to see the new stars flourish. It could start to become that pipeline for some of these people we're seeing in NXT who are definitely due to hop onto the main roster. So I think there's some real opportunities. I think this is also going to impact, by the time we get to April, May, whatever the draft will look like. Because remember, the draft always gave more to Raw because it was a longer show. If these shows are the same amount of time, then they both get the same kind of picks. And that could get interesting too. So I think there's some real potential here. And given to, I can't remember who said it. I think, Jacob, you might have said it. The size of WWE's main roster, you know, and ultimately getting an extra hour of television time is a win. a big win. And the question will be how it will be leveraged. And again, I have lots of faith in Triple H. Now, you guys mentioned potentially growing the tag team division. Well, there are potentially some new signings that could speak to that, as it is being reported that former multi-time TNA tag team champions, the Motor City Machine Guns, that's Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, are on their way to WWE. It is also being reported that Penta El Cerro Miedo, or Pentagon Jr., and Rey Phoenix, known as the Lucha Brothers, former AEW tag team champions, are also headed to the WWE. So with both of these teams coming, where do you see them fitting in? And who do you think their first opponents are? We'll start with the. Oh, well, Councilman, were you going first? Who was going first?
I was gonna say, we know the Lucha Bros. They already said they're going to the main roster, but something that the mayor has always said, so I will definitely use that to coin this. I pray a SmackDown, because please don't put them with the LWO. Please do not put them with Legado del Fantasma. Please, these boys stand by themselves and do it. Team. Please do not put them in a group. That's all I ask. Do not put them in a group.
So Motor City Machine Guns, they're NXT bound. I'm pretty sure, right?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I thought I read they were NXT bound and kind of help for them. They would be. That's a good hand for them to help build up some of those younger teams there.
I'm not
Lucha Bros. I don't mind Lucha Bros being in one of those teams. Not LWO. LWO is a little bit more like 5-6 members. Legado is kind of like floundering. They need like an injection. I wouldn't mind that at all. Because if we get to a world where we get singles Penta for a while in WWE, I'm here for that. I'm here for that. However we got to get there, I'm here for that. But as far as a first feud, I mean, I can see DIY for the Lucha Bros for, I guess, since it's getting soon to the CW, I think it's imminent that we see Motor City Machine Guns like one of those first 2 weeks, out of the first or the following week in Missouri. So I think they're heading straight for Fraxium.
Yeah, right after they match too in St. Louis, I could definitely see them coming out.
Okay. Courtney, any thoughts on who might be the first opponents for the Motor City Machine Guns or the Lucha Brothers?
Oh, I haven't heard the Motor City Machine Guns since their TNA days. I remember a few of their matches from 2003, 2004, 2005. I wouldn't mind seeing them on NXT. I know there was some reports floating around for them to be on NXT, but I wouldn't mind that. As for the Lucha Brothers, I wouldn't mind on either show. I just want them to be in a meaningful rivalry. And also, I don't want them to get buried by the Judgment Day, because Finn and JD are the tag team champions, but it's like, I don't want them to get buried. Same thing on SmackDown, where the Bloodline holds the tag team titles. So I could see them possibly going up to either DIY, the Street Profits, Pretty Deadly, the Creed Brothers of American Made. That could be a really good rivalry, depend on it. But I wouldn't mind for them to be on the main show, the Lucha Brothers. I've seen how they did on AEW. Like, they're fun, they're high flying, the crowd gets into it, they go crazy anytime they come out, so they can do that. And also, they do have an audience with kids. Like, kids love the Lucha Brothers, so that's also a plus too. But I really want them to stand on their own 2 feet. I don't want them to be a part of any stables, because I think they can handle it. But also, Motor City Machine Guns, I wouldn't mind seeing them on NXT, because there have been reports floating. So I wouldn't be shocked if they were in one of the season premieres, either in Chicago or St. Louis.
Jacob, any thoughts?
All right, so I shook my head at no to the Guns going to NXT, because yes, it makes all the sense in the world. That tag division is very lacking and could use a very solid, reputable hand in the Guns. My only argument is that the Guns are 20-plus year vets. They have been here forever and a day. I love the Guns to death. I just want them to get their proper due. And I feel like let them come in hot, let them have a run, and then send them back to NXT if they want to go down, help develop. By all means, I just want the Guns to get that moment in the sun. So that's my only objection to that. But if that means the Guns come in and they take the belts off of A-Kid and Nathan Frazier, then yes, gladly, please, for all means, split those two up and let them go their separate ways. We've been dragging this on too long. But the Lucha Bros, Councilman, they absolutely need to cross paths with LWO so we can send Rey Mysterio, get that retirement tour started, go ahead and get Wild and Mendoza. Just let's pack them up and let's get this going. Bring the Lucha Bros in as heels. Let that first feud be LWO. Let them walk up on Wild and Mendoza because I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, they've had interactions in the past.
Screws Del Toro now.
What? Look, I'll call him by his TNA name if I got to.
Oh, you talking about going? You talking about going up against them?
Yes.
Oh no, I'm here. I'm here.
I'm just saying because you're like, don't let them interact. No, let them go against them. Bring the Lucha Bros in as healed and go, hey, what happened to you? Who are you? Let them go in like that. Let's go ahead and just pack up the LWO. Let that shutter off. Let those two get their bit back together and let Lucha Bros knock them off and then get these tag belts off of Finn and
JD McDonough.
Yeah, the Ace. Like, get them off. They defended those belts once in 70-something days. I was watching Raw and I was like, wait, who are the tag champs? And I was like, oh, they don't even come out with the belts for segments. They don't even show up with the belts.
Sometimes.
Once every couple weeks when they're like, oh, damn, we should probably show these belts on TV. So let's let the Luchas get that and let's get it going.
To Cindio's comment, I'll never forget Penta in a handicap match against the Black Lotus Triad, including Kyrie and Io. It was a great match in Lucha. That was one of my favorite matches in Lucha.
Man, I just watched Penta and Io go this morning.
What they did in Lucha, and again, if you guys have not had a chance to ever watch Lucha, if you can find it anywhere, there was a point a couple of years ago where all of the seasons were on Tubi. I don't know if you can find it anywhere right now, but if you can find Lucha Underground anywhere, go back and find it. I genuinely believe you don't have NXT or AEW or some of the things that TNA has done without what Lucha brought to the table. And a lot of huge names. Oh my gosh, some of Ricochet's best work as Prince Puma. And gosh, we saw Karrion Kross there. We saw a ton of other incredible
Chelsea
people.
Gray, Ego, right? Ray was putting in work.
Swerve, like just a lot of incredible people. So if you get a chance, go back and check out all of the things that Lucha did, because Lucha was absolutely special. All right, we're going to take a quick break and a pause for the cause. Shout out our sponsor and come back and talk about some more wrestling.
This episode of Women's Wrestling Talk has been brought to you by All Caribbean Wrestling. Catch the wave. Go to allcaribbeanwrestling.com to check out all the latest pay-per-views or go on the YouTube page at All Caribbean Wrestling. Also, go and check out their socials on Instagram at All Caribbean Wrestling and on X at All Caribbean WR1.
Hey yo, you. Hey yo, you. Yeah, you. That's watching this. You sitting on the couch staring at the screen, not knowing what you want to do, like this is an online college. Are you tired of wearing shirts that make you look like an extra stuck in catering? Do you want to step your wrestling swag game up to the next level? Then Women's Wrestling Talk has got you covered. Like literally. Are you for life in pink or black and white? Or maybe you're the EST and people need to respect you accordingly. Want to put some pride in your stride and show off the muscle in your hustle? Then make sure you check out the WWT Store. Not now, but right now. Alright? What you waiting for? Head to www talkpodstore.com and don't make me fight you. Shit.
Yeah, we don't want to fight anybody. So make sure you check out our store for sure. And shout out, of course, to All Caribbean Wrestling, gearing up for our next big show, Fight for Paradise, October the 19th in Nassau, Bahamas. It's going to be very, very special. So if you guys want to make a trip to the Bahamas, and that's a great time, you know, in the United States, it's turning fall, it's getting cooler, but it's going to be super nice in the Bahamas. So you want to check it out. October the 19th is your date for that. And Nassau treats all Caribbean very, very well. So shout out to all of them. Now then, shout out to Layla Gray, who, of course, has been a part of AEW, OVW, Ring of Honor, and is now announcing that she is joining the New Japan Dojo. This is pretty awesome, actually, because there are a number of African-American women who have been a part of the dojo now. You have Trisha Dora, who was the first African-American woman on the dojo. Then Jada Stone has been a part. Now Layla Gray is participating. It'll be intriguing to see what she's done. And the first overall African-American member was Kevin Knight, who is killing it over in New Japan and has done great work over in TNA. So congratulations to Layla Gray. I don't know if that means she'll continue her work with Top Flight. You know, she was the stewardess, which I don't know how they came up with that, but be that as it may, I'm glad that Layla Gray is getting a more fruitful opportunity at the dojo. Now, this was an interesting set of tweets that happened yesterday. It started with Adam Pearce responding to a question: would he ever get back in the ring and battle Nick Aldis? And he really teased us. He talked about why he left pro wrestling, and if he were to ever come back for a match, could it be this one? Nick Aldis responded in a tweet showing himself at the gym, saying a lot of people would like to see this match. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. For those who don't know, these are two former NWA world champions. Both seem to still be in great shape. Councilman, let's start with you. Would you want to see a match between Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce in a WWE ring?
Sure.
You sound really sure about that.
Like, I'm not asking for it, but I'm like, if it happens, okay. There's legs there for it. I think the best place you could have seen it, but I don't think they even do it like that anymore, was Survivor Series. I don't think they do Raw and Smackdown anymore like that. But that would have been a great like match to have there, like the GM versus the GM. I wouldn't mind seeing that once.
Well, Survivor Series is on the way. Survivor Series is on the way in November. Jacob, do you think there's a possibility that in some way we see these two on opposing sides?
Honestly, yeah, because here's the thing. Before Nick Aldis showed up as SmackDown's GM, he went back to TNA and did a little bit of work, and he was looking damn good. So it's very much a possibility. And WWE, especially on the Triple H, doesn't like to really tease things like this if they can't pay it off of some sort. So sure, maybe you eventually get something. I got a weird feeling that eventually I think the Wyatt Six is going to be the thread that makes this happen, because you saw the logo popped up behind Aldis last week on SmackDown. I got a feeling that they show up on SmackDown eventually. They run rampant. Nick pulls up on Raw one day. It's like, hey, man, get your sickos. They were here first. Why are they over here? And then one thing to another. And then boom, Aldis, scrap daddy. Let's go.
That sounds interesting. Courtney, any thoughts on a potential match between these two general managers?
I actually wouldn't mind seeing these two, because I know when Nick Aldis came in, they've been taking a lot of shots at each other, and that's been teasing a little bit, but I would not mind seeing them in a match together. And as kind of Jacob said, it would be nice to see some kind of teaser with the Wyatt Six, or maybe something of Nick Aldis, somebody from SmackDown does a little invasion. That would actually be interesting. This could be a possible match maybe at Survivor Series, possibly SummerSlam. That would be a good idea to center it on. But I'm actually all in for it, and I do like to see them tease a little bit more in the couple weeks and have them continue on stirring the pot a bit, because it's always nice to see the GMs go at it with each other.
So said, I think of all of the GMs in the history of WWE, these two are probably the most likely to have a credible wrestling match. Who wins if it's Aldis versus Pierce?
I think Aldis is the easy answer, but so I'll go with Pierce to kind of get it upset. But I'm only interested in this if all three GMs are involved. Meaning that Ava's involved in this match, and then Ava subs in her dad to take her place in the match. That's the only way that I'm interested in this match whatsoever. Piggybacking on what everybody's saying about Survivor Series being the most likely, and I don't think it would even be a one-on-one. I think they would probably man their respective teams and then kind of have that moment in the match where they are both in the ring with each other. I think that would be the best place for this to happen instead of an actual time limit match for whatever time. Because I don't think the crowd would really get behind it. But if you had 2 5-man teams and they're both on the apron with their teams, sure. I think that would be the best place.
Now that you say it like that, though, I could also see that happening at Royal Rumble.
Both enter the Rumble and have that moment.
And have that moment, and then both of them get
thrown.
That
piss me off. That's
I mean,
there's nothing way too mad than wasting entries in the Rumble.
It's no worse than McAfee coming in, being like, "Oop, nope," and going right out. At least this could pay off to something down the road. And here's my thing.
That wasn't supposed to be Pat McAfee. I forgot.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It happened.
When Michael Cole went in, Michael Cole did it too.
Mm-hmm.
It happened. You could have called anybody else other than McAfee. It happened. Still the point. Here's my thing, though. Nick Aldis at some point is going to get physical with somebody.
Yeah.
Like, you keep watching SmackDown. They keep trying this man and putting hands on him and interrupting him. At some point, I think we're going to get that Nick Aldis match, and it's probably going to slap a lot better than it should and surprise a lot of people, because this man can go in the ring. He held down TNA during the dark days, and he beat Cody once, and then, we had to get it back and all that. But, it's there. It's there. I'm just saying, it could be entertaining. I don't think people really give Nick Aldis, and to a lesser credit, Adam Pearce, the credit that they deserve for their time in ring, because they haven't seen it on a big enough stage or seen it at all.
It's going to be versus the COO if it happens. That's the only way you really can sell it.
It's going to be.
I know everybody's going to say it's going to be versus the COO if it happens. And I know everybody's going to say that he can't do it, and he's already said he won't wrestle again. But, we're in a never say never industry, and then healthcare is rapidly improving.
I thought he
but this was the man's heart, though. I don't think he's playing with that.
Though.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to get into the technology. I don't know what they can do.
Listen,
you never know.
It's the heart.
It was like
not a neck or concussion.
Yeah, it's like unless he replaces his heart, it's like, bro, you can't.
Yeah, that ain't that. Yeah. I will say this. I think it's probably a fair thing for people to probably go back and do some research on Nick Aldis. I mean, people are acting like Nick Aldis's last match was 15 years ago. He was in a ring last year, and that was off the back of a significant I'll go so far as to say there's not an NWA right now if it was not for Nick Aldis. I mean, Nick Aldis's championship run is what gave the NWA the platform it has right now.
Man, that carried power for the first year or so.
I mean, it really did. And I mean, he went, people who were mad about the Roman Reigns reign would have been mad about the Nick Aldis reign. He had almost 4 years as champion, but he was the guy who was as close to a vintage NWA world champion as you were going to get. A former TNA world champion as well. I mean, and let's put it to you this way. When he got signed to WWE, many were actually shocked that he was the general manager and not going into a ring. So I definitely think Nick Aldis is a guy who could put on the boots right now and give us a significant match. So I want to make sure people are aware of that. And if you aren't, definitely go back, check it out. I mean, the whole thing that built AEW was this little event called All In. And the only title match at All In was the NWA World title from that man, Nick Aldis, against Cody Rhodes. So Nick Aldis is very significant in this picture, and I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. But he's got to be able to say he had one match in WWE. I don't know against who.
We already know what it is. Logan Paul. That's exactly who he's gonna face. Logan Paul.
You know, that actually,
I wouldn't hate it.
I would not. I think that would be a pretty decent match.
He could wear him out, actually.
I really think that'd be one that could go.
So, quick question: if we get a Nick Aldis match, do we get Mickie James also? Like, is this a 2-for-1 special or?
We saw her in the Rumble when she was TNA.
I'm just saying.
And so,
just saying, that's his wife, so we can get another Mickie run out of this.
I think that's probably more up to Mickie than anybody else.
Yeah.
I think Mickie would be welcomed, especially in this WWE women's environment. I think that could be something really, really special. So we'll see, because it could be interesting. So with GMs, we can talk about people who have chosen to sign and re-sign. This is Steve Corino, a former NWA world champion, also did quite a bit in ECW. He spends quite a bit of time training the future stars at the PC, and he has re-signed with the WWE. So that is great. He is responsible for working with a lot of the tag teams in WWE. So when we start talking about, tag team improvement and things like this, here's a man who definitely is going to be a big part of that. And speaking of signings, this guy, Ken Shamrock, has officially signed a Legends deal with WWE. He talked about that on the Chris Van Vliet podcast. And he was also asked if he was interested in being in the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, he said that, he's definitely thought about it. It's not something that he is obsessed about. But let's have the conversation. Does Ken Shamrock deserve a space in the WWE Hall of Fame? Said, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll say yes, because he was the first notable crossover from that martial arts world into the WWE, which led to so many more prominent names crossing over as well. For that alone, he's kind of a pioneer in that regard. So I think he should. And he had a lot of great rivalries back in the day that should be highlighted. He was a good hand, very good wrestler. So yeah, I think he should.
Courtney, Ken Shamrock in the Hall of Fame. What do you think?
Given that he was there during that particular era, in the Attitude Era, as the mayor pointed out, he is no slouch. And I'm pretty sure at that time it did cross over a bit with mixed martial arts entering the professional wrestling world. And that kind of really gave a little bit to light on mainstream. But he has had some matches, because I know people think oh, he was in the corporation, he helped Vince. Well, people tend to forget he did have some matches. He was an Intercontinental Champion. He was a former tag team champion. He's had some notable feuds. And also, one of the feuds that he had was, I believe, when Chris Jericho debuted into WWE. I think that was one of the feuds, because they were feuding with each other. But I do believe he does deserve a spot, given the impact that he's had. And even though it was in a little bit of a short time frame, a lot of people will go back and look at some of his matches that he had. So I think he deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame.
Jacob, what do you think? Ken Shamrock in the Hall of Fame?
I'm going to say yes, because I just pulled up a quick list of people in the Hall of Fame, because the whole thought is, oh, Ken Shamrock, that feels a little egregious. And I'm just looking at this and I see Great Khali. I see Brutus Beefcake. I see Hillbilly Jim. I'm just saying he's not the most egregious name that would go in the Hall of Fame. And if you honestly think about it, he contributed a lot in the Attitude Era. And there's the famous gif of him taking that chair shot from The Rock. He helped establish The Rock as a main event top shelf heel. He helped get The Rock over. And Shamrock tells the story of Rock was like, so how do you want me to hit me? Ken's like, just hit me dead in the face. He's like, it's the safest way to hit somebody. He's like, because I could just eat it. He's like, if you hit me on the head or the chin, you run a risk of something. So yeah, no, absolutely. He's a former IC champ. Like said, he brought the crossover, the realness from the UFC. He helped that go mainstream at the time. He's done a lot, and you could call him a pioneer and an innovator. And again, it's not the most egregious name in the Hall of Fame. He deserves a spot if he gets one. He'd be like if we equate this to any other sport, he's not a first ballot, but he gets in on like the 4th or 5th time or his last year of eligibility. And you're like, yeah, I can see that. I'm not going to argue over that.
Councilman?
Put some respect on my man Ken Shamrock name. I don't even like this question. Like this Hall of Fame Ken Shamrock makes as much sense as NXT Bonafide. It just needs to happen. Okay. Let's not act like this man was a slouch. Okay. Like you said, The Rock wouldn't have stepped up in ring wise if it was not for Ken Shamrock. Him and The Rock in King of the Ring, phenomenal. All right. Him versus Owen Hart in the Octagon cage match.
Yes.
Nasty work.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, my favorite, him and the Steve Blackwell feud. Oh my God.
Steve Blackman. Yeah.
Yes. This man deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. To Jacob's point, not first ballot, not saying that or anything like that. But I don't even see why there's a discussion of if he shouldn't go. Like the dude contributed a lot. Like even the Courtney point and Jacob's point. IC champion, I believe you're a European champion as well. Part of the corporation. Like if you're going to tell the Attitude Era story, you're not gonna pass up Ken Shamrock's contributions to that. So definitely should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, not to mention he's also a King of the Ring. I mean, like this. It's actually wild that he's not in the Hall of Fame. Like that, you're given as many inductions, and I don't want to besmirch anyone that's in the Hall of Fame, but there are some people who were inducted that I had personally, a harder time justifying than others. I don't think it's a difficult justification for him, considering we're in the land of TKO, where WWE and UFC are siblings. He was the one who initiated that. You could make that argument. Before Ronda Rousey and before Kurt Angle gave us the ankle lock, it was Ken Shamrock. And so, I think it's definitely warranted. I think it would be a great moment. And again, you think about what the Attitude Era represented. It's not the same if you take out Ken Shamrock. He might not have been the names that you think about when you first talk about the Attitude Era, but you start realizing after you go back and watch the Attitude Era just how big of a part of that era he was, because WCW had no answer for a Ken Shamrock. They tried to have an answer for an Austin. They tried to have their answer for DX with the NWO, but they did not have anybody who could counteract a Ken Shamrock, and he was an anomaly. So hopefully we'll see him inducted into the Hall of Fame. Now, with all this talk of new contracts, someone who has not signed yet is Kevin Owens. So there's talk that they have presented him with a new contract. Not sure what the details of that are or why we don't have a signed contract for Kevin Owens as of yet. There is talk, of course, AEW is interested. Is this, again, much ado about nothing? Do you see a world where Kevin Owens does not re-sign with WWE? Jacob?
So correct me if I'm wrong, but we've been here before, right? Like this came up.
Have been here before
a couple years ago at KO, and he signed the extension, and he basically was like, "Dog, I've been here almost 10 years. This feels like this is home for me at this point." I mean, I get it. The Bucks are there. Kenny is there. His friends are there. But on the flip side, your friends are also in WWE. Randy is there. Sammy is there. And he even made the comment about Punk. He was like, we're professional. I ain't got nothing to talk to him about. Like, it's not a big deal. I don't know. I feel like it's much to do about nothing. I do feel like Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, whatever you want to call him, he'll be fine no matter where he goes. I think this really just comes down to a matter of what his family wants and what he wants, because essentially the schedule's the same. Like WWE does do house shows, but they're cutting back on that. So much to do about nothing. I'm not going to be shocked one way or the other. If he goes AEW, I'm like, yeah, I see that. That makes sense. If he stays, of course, he's been here 10 years. Why wouldn't he?
Let's see. Courtney, any thoughts? Where do you think we're in a world where Kevin Owens does not re-sign with WWE?
I can't see that because at the end of the day, it's going to be pretty much Kevin's decision and what his family's going to do. Of course, he does have people within AEW. He does have some friends here within WWE. But I would not be shocked if he did re-sign, because I feel like he does have a lot more opportunities to chase. And I know he's been dying to be World Heavyweight Champion again before he retires. That has been the goal. So it's pretty much ado about nothing. And at the end of the day, it's Kevin's choice. But either way, I would not be shocked one way I would not be shocked one way or another. But I do think he's going to resign.
One time for Cindy-O.
I gotta stop reading the comments.
Sorry for you guys in the chat. I can't quote this one, but yeah. I have a great affinity towards Cindy-O.
Thank you for that translation, Cindy-O.
Yeah, I need to play RVD's music. She's one of a kind for sure. Said man, let me ask you this. Let's say Kevin Owens does re-sign with WWE. What's left for him to accomplish?
He has to get another meaningful title reign. Like another meaningful, lengthy title reign. I know he's very vocal about always wanting to do work with NXT too. I think I think he's been almost everywhere, but I think he still wants to give back to WWE so much more. So I think even going back to NXT with this new partnership would be a good look. But he's done so much, but he's like one of those guys that if he left, it makes sense on the surface, but I can't see it because everything is so good. He's not one of those guys that's just in the back struggling to get seen or stuck in catering, can't get a storyline or a match. He's prominently featured. So I think he, if anything, and this is sometimes a bad word, he's comfortable. He's comfortable where he is. So I don't see him not resigning.
Okay. Councilman, any thoughts on this?
Just the same thing. I think kind of like how we talked about with Becky Lynch and a few others, I think Kevin has hit that status in WWE where when it's not about him not resigning, I think just making the contract work for him. So sending it back with like what he thinks he would like to see, then with a counter offer, and then kind of just finding something in the middle that works for both of them. I think that's all we're really seeing. But to like Mayor's point, this is the best place WW has been in quite some time. And though like your friends are in AEW, that's fine, but you already know how that moves. Japan would be cool, but it's like to the question you asked, Professor, like what does he have left? I think he has so much left. Like you have the world heavyweight title, which you've never held. You have now the undisputed championship that you've never held. And not to take the moniker away from Jay, but I would love to see main event KO. Headlining a PLE as the champion, bringing back the KO show. Like I think he has so much more to be able to offer here in the WWE, and so I don't see him leaving this place that's put him on the map.
Well, we will certainly see. I am of the mindset that I think he's going to be staying with the WWE and enjoying all that there is to offer with the E. With that said, we're gearing up for SmackDown, which takes place tonight. Should be very interesting. It includes a U.S. title match as the U.S. champion LA Knight takes on Andrade. That has banger potential all over it. This tag team match gets more and more interesting by the moment. So last week, we found out that Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton would be taking on Bayley and Naomi. If Bayley and Naomi wins, whoever gets the pin gets a title match against Nia. If they lose, whoever takes the fall is gone from SmackDown permanently. And then the GM, Nick Aldis, today added another stipulation to this, turning this into a tornado tag team match. So I'm curious, who wins this? Councilman.
Bailey finna to SmackDown. Bailey's out.
Oh, you think Bailey's getting pinned today?
Bailey's out of here.
Oh, Bailey's 100% taking the pin.
Bailey is out of here, yo. Bailey's gone.
There's nothing left for Bailey.
Both of y'all are wrong.
There's nothing left for Bailey to do on SmackDown. Damage Control is what, on Raw?
Yeah.
They are.
So I'll go a step further. You trying to load up October 1st and what, October 7th or 8th? Bailey's going to NXT.
Talk about it. I was just finna say this.
Going to
That's
NXT.
where Bailey going. Bailey gonna take on Roxanne. Bailey's going to fight Roxanne for the title.
Wow.
How's she gonna have the title when Julia finna take that?
Okay.
That's the thing. Julia's not
we're
going
out
to
of
take the title, and then
delusional.
you're going to have another match where you say, like, I need somebody that's on my level. Enter Bailey.
Yep.
Yes, because we need the Iron Woman versus the Iron Survivor. You have to have that in an Iron Woman match for the NXT Women's title. And with as much as they're trying to cook up the women's division, Bailey can go eat there. Like even her taking on Jordan Grace, her taking on Julia. Like there's so much potential for Bailey to have going to NXT. It just makes perfect sense for her to be able to take the L. Naomi, her family's there. Like her husband is there. So it's like I don't see her really wanting to leave SmackDown. Tiffany is locked in with Nia, so there's no reason for her to be moved right now to Raw with the women's Money in the Bank, especially with the way the Women's World Heavyweight Championship is tied up.
I wouldn't mind that, though.
I wouldn't
mind if that was the way to get Tiffany Stratton to Raw. I just don't think that's what's going to happen. I think there's more legs to moving Bailey to NXT, because just like you needed Becky to take the title off of Stratton, this is basically the same thing to allow Roxanne to eventually move on.
Yeah.
Well, this will be very interesting. Lots of thoughts here. Let's see. Dylan says send Bailey to somewhere else. I don't know if that's. I don't know what to make of that. Jeffrey says Bailey versus Liv Morgan. That could be interesting. If they send Bailey or Naomi to NXT, it proves that they need main roster stars to get to a million.
I wouldn't say all that. I wouldn't say
Boza.
What's the walk?
NXT has very loyal fans. I don't think you need those people. Just a little buffer.
I think both of what you're skipping is the fact of people actually wanting to go to NXT. Like Bailey has already talked about the women's division there. Like people on the main roster want to go down there now. It's not about being sent there to go just work on yourself. It's like, no, I actually want to go down there and face somebody just because of how white hot it is right now in NXT.
Yeah, it's not a punishment anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is not a punishment. Plus, I just want to remind everyone that not only do they, first of all, everybody who's showing up for this CW premiere is the same thing that you do for any season premiere anyway. You stack the deck. Did we just forget that a week ago for the season premiere of SmackDown, we started with a world title match that was inside of a steel cage and saw the return of Roman Reigns for the season premiere?
And commercial free.
And commercial free for the first 30 minutes. Season premieres are going to do that. We expect that. So I'm not mad that NXT is going to load up on the season premiere and the week after. They're on a brand new network. And remember, I think they're going to clear 1 million. I think they'll do over 1 million because they're on broadcast television. So when you're on that means you're available in more homes. There are more people. The CW is already behind it. They're already putting out content on their socials. They've already, you know how WWE on Fox was a thing. Now, you know, they've got a WWE on CW kind of thing. Their CW sports pieces putting stuff out. So there's a lot of commitment from the CW to see to it that their people are aware that it is there. So if you think about how many people have cut the cable cord, you know, Plenty of people have broadcast TV. So it's going to get interesting. Now, what I don't know, and I probably need to do a little bit of research on this, is to see if when NXT, in other words, after you've watched an episode of NXT, I know the next day it's available on Peacock. Previously, and we haven't even talked about this. This is probably a good time to talk about the relationship between the WWE and Hulu is coming to an end. It ends, I believe, next week. So, you won't be able. Yeah, so you won't be able to get replays of Raw and SmackDown, and I believe NXT as well.
They already did it with SmackDown. SmackDown isn't showing anymore. You got to buy the live TV thing to watch SmackDown now.
Yeah, so with that said, I think it's going to get interesting in terms of that. But all of that said, NXT is going to bang, and it's going to be and it should. I mean, think about it. They moved it to an arena. They moved it to Chicago. And I don't know if they're going to be traveling every week or not, but clearly they're going to make a great first 2-week impression, get you hooked and get things very, very exciting. So I'm pumped to see what's going to happen for WWE's NXT show on the CW. Now, what we'll also be seeing, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Not to interrupt, did a quick Google and a little bit of searching. It looks like once that move happens for NXT, CW gets some of the more recent, older episodes on their app. And I think moving forward, so it gives them like a backlog. So like, hey, here's a get familiar section, basically.
That's smart.
And then I'm pretty sure it probably will eventually bounce to Peacock because it's kind of WWE's home still. Like NBC, Universal still is the backer. So for now, it'll probably bounce to Peacock at some point. But yeah, it looks like it goes to the CW app.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see both. Since NXT does show up on Peacock still, and that Peacock deal is still good. So 2025 is going to be a very interesting year for WWE. It just is. What else we'll see on SmackDown tonight? These two guys, Roman and Cody. Now, I'm told that they're going to be airing some footage tonight that was recorded here in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. And I'm told that it is contentious. The ties are very interesting. Put a photo up. Boy, you guys are hilarious. On one hand, you have Cody, who is a resident of Atlanta. On the other hand, you have Roman, whose alma mater was Georgia Tech. So how wild this will get just a couple of weeks ahead of Bad Blood should be interesting. I'm very intrigued to see where this goes. So needless to say, it's going to be an interesting night on SmackDown tonight. And again, that starts at the top of the hour. So you guys will want to make sure that you are checking that out. Yeah. So here's how you can reach out to us on the socials. Jacob, how can we find you?
Of course, you can find me on Twitter at _JDella. Find me on Instagram at JDella with the underscore on the back end. You can find all my writings and musings over at Anscape, covering shoes and sports and things of that nature in regards to the culture, along with stillcrew.com. And, I occasionally pop in here every so often. And, I do my job as one half of the greatest podcast tag team ever.
Well, there it is. I love it. Courtney, how can the people find you?
You can find me on both Twitter and Instagram on @CourtneyNJ11, where I'll be talking all wrestling, not just that, but also post-pageant stuff after Miss New Jersey is over. You can also catch me, because normally Honey would be doing Friday Night SmackDown. I will be taking the lead tonight for Friday Night SmackDown, so you will catch me here on the watch-along. Feel free to catch me on that. And also, every Wednesday is All Elite Wednesday, where I'll be doing a watch-along. Do not miss out this upcoming Wednesday, because AEW is doing Grand Slam, and they are back in New York City.
Awesome sauce. Councilman, how can the people find you?
Well, you can find me at my new social media handle, Get Cody Rhodes a Real Storyline, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Make sure you follow that and support. Also join my Discord of why is Sami Zayn still relevant. We're still trying to figure that out. It's a great mystery. We're calling him the 11th wonder of the world because I just don't see what people see in him. I don't get it. Maybe someone will finally be able to help me figure it out. But you can also catch me here Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays on WWT Live. And now for the watch-alongs on Tuesday night, Pharaoh, the NXT watch-along, as Boza stated, you're now NXT expert. Catch me there on Tuesdays as we get geared up for the CW premiere that's happening in 2 weeks.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Said, how can the people find you?
I don't want to be found today. I want to know who opened up the field at Georgia Tech to let those two men meet in the middle of the night and recorded selfies of them having a civil conversation. That's what I want to know.
That field is
who's the
pretty
groundskeeper?
open, I'm not going to lie.
Who's the groundskeeper there? That's what I want to know. Also, we're still passing the collection plate around. We're trying to get the real TK a game-worn Trick Williams T-shirt whenever he actually does put on a shirt. I have talked to my people about an investigation with him and the baby oil incident that I mentioned on the stream the other day. We want to make sure that he has no connection. Want to make sure that no baby oil was harmed under Trick Williams' watch. I'll be sure of that as your mayor to make sure that we're good there. We want to make sure he's on that first episode of the season.
Allegedly. Thank you.
Other than that, you can catch me here Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The socials stay the same. All the journalism working on. You already know that. But just this weekend, don't find me. Just don't find me. Just to be clear.
Allegedly.
Cousin Ron says we still want the debate. I'd like the debate to happen too. I think we need to figure out how we
clamoring for this debate, but they can't handle it, and they also have not sent in any topics.
Oh.
Has anybody sent in any topics?
Interesting. So you can find me at Bonnerfied across all of the social spaces. Definitely check it out. I've got some cool videos I've posted over the last day or so. So check that out, including some very kind words recently said by Psycho Boy Fodder and Angelina Love, 7-time world champion. Some very kind things to say. So you can check that out on my Instagram page. Also, you can check out my commentary work. Tomorrow night, I will be with IWE in Augusta, and it's getting to be a pretty busy week. That's this weekend. Next weekend, I'll be with Ashe. The following weekend, I will be with Southern Honor. 2 weeks from there, I'll be with Southern Honor. And then after that, I will be with All Caribbean in the Bahamas. So a busy time, but I like busy. Busy is very, very good. So I'm looking forward to that. You can check out my commentary work if you'd like to listen or watch on IWTV with IWE and Southern Honor Wrestling, on YouTube, on the respective channels for the Nightmare Factory, for All Caribbean Wrestling as well, and for Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. And you can check out my work with Ashe Wrestling at AsheWrestling.com. You can check out what we're doing here as part of Women's Wrestling Talk at our website, www talkpod.com. You can also check out our social space. Lots of cool things happening there at www.talkpod. All of our great shows, including our watch-alongs. Our next watch-along happens in about 30 minutes. Again, filling in for Honey will be Courtney tonight on SmackDown, so you can hang out with her right here for all of the SmackDown shenanigans. It should be a lot of fun. Shouts to all of you guys.
Whoa, you forgot, Professor.
What did I forget?
We believe in it.
Y'all are gonna mess around and make something happen. So
we believe
it. That's really awesome. That is awesome. Thank you guys for being so supportive. Shout out to Cousin Ron and Boza. Let's see, Jeffrey, Dylan, Cindyl, Eric. Let's see, I know I'm missing people, and so I apologize if I did not mention your name. There are lots of names. Trizzy Sins, that's a very interesting name, but thank you for hanging out with us. Few others, again, whose names I may have missed. Easy Knot and whoever else. Thank you guys for rocking with us. We appreciate you. Make sure you're catching up with us and following all the cool things that we're doing. We as a collective will be back on Monday to talk about all the things that happened over the weekend and the like, because this is WWT Live as part of Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.
Thanks for joining WWT. Don't forget to like us on all social media platforms at WWTalkpod. Like and subscribe on all video and audio platforms, like yesterday, my G. And check out our website at wwwtalkpod.com. Thanks for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling